Good morning, or depending on when you're watching this, good afternoon, good evening, or good night. My name's Ross, and as always, told out of Voice of Radio. So today, we've got a couple of new cards from that upcoming Dark Phantasm set that I told you about yesterday, and these cards are looking, if I may be so bold, pretty gosh darn good, ladies and gentlemen. Pretty gosh darn good. We got a new Gengar we need to be talking about today, and we got ourselves a Hisuian Zoroark. And no, Hisuian Zoroark is not as good as the V-Star we looked at yesterday, but if we're being fair and honest here, there are very few cards that are as good as the Hisuian Zoroark that I showed you yesterday. So you know what? I think we'll give it a pass on that one. But both of these are very interesting cards that have an awful lot going for them. So let's start off with Gengar. And Gengar, what I should be saying is this. Well, Gengar's good, but Gengar's a stage 2. And we all know that stage 2s are not always terribly viable. It takes something particularly special like an Inteleon with that amazing ability and the stage 1 Drizzile, or the Ludicolo with that ridiculous ability that breaks other basic Pokemon. It takes something like that to actually get a stage 2 Pokemon playing. Well, I've got wonderful news, ladies and gentlemen. Greninja, he ain't no usual stage 2. Translations here, of course, from the lovely Antoine Boulet. And what we've got here is 120 HP, which is low for a stage 2. And again, it's not really a stage 2. We're not playing it like a stage 2. But my goodness, 120 HP on a stage 2. That is really low, ladies and gentlemen. Having said that, a regular stage 2 Gengar's never had above 130, and we had 110 HP as recently as Sword and Shield. So you know what? Gengar just doesn't have much HP, and I think that's okay. We do have a retreat cost of 2 here, and I'll be honest with you, ugh. And look, I know like the one from Sword and Shield had a retreat cost of 2, but we've had so many free retreating Gengar, and Gengar is so fast in the video games that I know we've had a retreat cost of 2 before. It still makes me sad. The ability does not make me sad. What the ability says is, once during your turn, you may put this card from your discard pile onto your bench. If you do, put 3 damage counters on this Pokemon. Yes. Brilliant. And I like this Gengar, let's be clear. I really like this Gengar. Because the fact of the matter is, it's not a real stage 2. You can play the Ghastly and the Haunter and all of that if you really want to. Go for it. But this isn't a real stage 2. I'm sure you've got to put 3 damage counters on in order to use this ability. I don't really care, and that could actually be a bonus. We'll get to that in a moment. But what we've got here is a rather ridiculous Pokemon which can come along out of nowhere and just start attacking, and, you know, what will essentially be 90 HP on what is essentially a basic. Yeah, that's not bad. I love this ability. And because it's not a rule box Pokemon, we can turn this ability off. But you're talking things along the lines of Galarian Wheezing. Like, that's the level you've got to go to. And incidentally, Galarian Wheezing is from Rebel Clash. These cards are going to be in whatever comes after Astral Radiance, what is going to be our August set, and the rotation's going to be end of August, beginning of September. So this set might actually come out on rotation. We've seen that before. Or we might have a week or two, but chances are these aren't really going to be pre-rotation cards. Love the ability. And of course, let's not forget, I showed you that Hisuian Zoroark. Remember the one that says you do 50 damage for every one of your Pokemon in play that has any damage counters on? Well, look at this, ladies and gentlemen. Look at this. Because this is a Pokemon that comes straight from your discard pile onto your bench with damage on. So now if you get a Gengar in your hand, all you have to do is discard it, and something like Ultra Ball will do very nicely. And then all of a sudden you play it onto your bench, and not only do you have the Gengar out, but then you also have a damaged Pokemon on your bench to boost damage with Hisuian Zoroark. I'm not saying all Hisuian Zoroark decks are going to play this, but I am saying it is a very nice option. Then, of course, you've got the attack, 1 Psychic Energy, Shrieking Circle. Put 2 damage counters on your opponent's active Pokemon for each of their benched Pokemon. And a lot of the time, what this is essentially going to do is either it's going to just be a free 100 damage, or you are essentially playing Collapse Stadium without having to waste your time playing Collapse Stadium. Collapse Stadium is that new stadium that limits players to 4 bench Pokemon. Except here, you're basically limiting your opponent's bench because they don't want to take the extra damage, but you're not limiting your own. And if your opponent goes, you can't make me limit my bench, brilliant! Because now I'm doing 100 damage. But it's quite important to note, I'm not doing 100 damage, I'm placing damage counters. Which means anything that prevents effects of attacks will prevent this, but anything that stops damage won't. And this can end up at times being rather relevant. And I love this, because you discard it, and then you can play it straight from your discard onto your bench, and then you get to just put a single energy on. It's a pseudo-basic single energy, and then you put 10 damage counters, 100 damage on your opponent's active. That's really good for a single prize Pokemon, and I like this very, very much indeed. And then, of course, you got the combo with Hisuian Zoroark, all those Pokemon that do damage based on how many bench Pokemon you've got, etc., etc., will all be helped out massively with Gengar here. I love it. And I'm going to be giving it 4 wussies. I really like this card. I am a genuine huge fan of this card. This is one that I absolutely want to try cramming into a bunch of decks. Yes, it's Psychic Energy, which can be annoying, but there is a lot to like about Gengar. And on the face of it, Hisuian Zoroark looks brilliant. And not just because of the amazing Saito artwork, but it's one of those cards where when you read it, you're like, ooh! And then you keep thinking about it like, oh. Because it's not quite as good as it looks. Now, what we've got here is 120 HP, and we all know that that means things like Rapid Strike Urshifu will take it off the bench nice and easily, so we would like a little bit more than that if possible. We don't have it. But we do have a very nice attack for no energy. Remember, like a Alolan Pokemon, Hisuian Pokemon can have free attacks. They don't all, but some of them do. And what we've got here is, at the end of your opponent's next turn, the defending Pokemon will be knocked out. An automatic KO on any Pokemon for 0 energy. And this is one of those ones, and I know I'm not the only one. I looked at that first of all, and I was like, for no energy? And then I was like, oh, Absol. Because the thing is, we've seen this kind of attack on Absol before. The one that I kept trying to make work was the Absol from Guardians Rising with Doom News. For 2 energy, put all energy attached to this Pokemon into your hand. At the end of your opponent's next turn, the defending Pokemon will be knocked out. And I know I'm not the only one that tried to make this Absol work, because it's clearly really fun. But the fact, and to be fair, Absol G from way back in Supreme Victors actually did the exact same thing, except there it was free energy. The problem is, Absol never worked. And the reason Absol never worked was because it is only the defending Pokemon, i.e., the Pokemon that was in the active position at the time you use the attack. If your opponent switches their active Pokemon or retreats their active Pokemon, then for 0 energy you've done nothing. And that was always the big problem. Now there are ways around this. Obviously Galar Mine becomes amazing if you ignore the fact that it's going to rotate out as this is released. Do remember that in Japan, their rotation tends to come a bit later, a few months later. So Japan is going to have that format where they will have this with Galar Mine, which will make it a fair bit better. We won't. This will come out as Galar Mine rotates. And the thing is, this will work sometimes. There will absolutely be games where your opponent doesn't have enough energy to retreat their active, can't find a switch, and you trap them and win. But there are also going to be a lot of times where what actually happens is you use this attack for 0 energy, your opponent retreats or switches. And I know it's a free attack, but one of the things we have to learn about free attacks is just because they're free doesn't make them good. If we look at something like Alolan Vulpix, which really was, I think, the gold standard of free attacks, it searched out any 2 Pokemon for 0 energy, and it was especially good, because remember in the early game you could use your energy attachment for the turn to retreat your active, then Alolan Vulpix would attack for 0, search out 2 Pokemon, life was good. Saw a ridiculous amount of play. But don't use a bad attack just because it's free. And I'm not saying this is a bad attack, and incidentally it is better than Absol, because you don't need any energy, and obviously you then don't have to put it in your hand. But I worry that this is too easily played around. If you can really get to the point where you know where this is going to hit, wonderful. I just think that's going to be too awkward. As a side note, this is another one of those cards that I am always going to be considering in a Zoroark deck, because I'm going to be mucking about with Zoroark decks until the day it rotates. And that is going to last 1 more year. And the thing about Zoroark is you discard it and swap it with a stage 1 in your discard pile. So if I know my opponent's playing free switching cards and they're all in the discard, or my opponent's got a very low hand size, and I know they can't retreat, switch Zoroark for this, and you know you're getting a KO. Or, one of the things I like having in my decks is an it probably won't work but I'm desperate attack. And this is a great it probably won't work but I'm desperate attack. If you've got to get a KO now, or, within the next turn, or you're going to lose the game and you've got nothing else, throw this up. And if you're playing Zoroark, it's literally a 1-card tech. Swap Zoroark for Hisuian Zoroark, you don't need any energy, jobs are good. And 1-card tech doesn't use any energy, and maybe it works. And that's when I think this card gets really good. In a Zoroark deck, I could see this being legit, because it's great. You might only use it 1 in every 10 games, but in those 1 in 10 games, it is going to make a huge difference, and it's 1 card in your deck. So it's fine. Outside of that, I think it is a bit too easily played around. There is another attack here. Single energy, choose a card from your discard pile and put it into your hand. I'm all for recovery, but it's a stage 1, it's a coloured energy, and it only gets 1 card back. I'm not saying it's bad, but I am saying that looking at the control decks around at the moment, I don't think this is going to be it. Maybe this will again go into control decks that play Zoroark, and I know a bunch of them do, just for that reason. And incidentally, in a control deck, you can run your opponent out of resources, and then Hex Ruin becomes awesome. So maybe in control decks, this could also be very good. I think outside of control decks and outside of Zoroark decks, I don't like it very much. And I think it's too easily played around, and the recovery isn't good enough. But you know what, ladies and gentlemen? This is good. And I like it. I'm giving this one between 3 and 4 Wassies. We don't give half Wassies. That would be barbaric. So there we go. I promised you a couple of interesting new cards, and I'm pretty sure I delivered, but now it's over to you guys. Tell me what you think about Gengar, tell me what you think of Hisuian Zoroark, tell me anything you want to tell me. Go nuts in the comment section, but be nice! And then make sure you like this video, subscribe to this channel, follow me on Twitter at TheWasi, and Twitch for some live action at twitch.tv/PTCG Radio. If you want to support the channel, get some bonus podcasts and all that good stuff, head on over to patreon.com/PTCG Radio, where you can do exactly that. But by far the most important thing as always, look after yourselves till next time, would ya? Thank you very much for watching. My name's Ross, and you've been watching PTCG Radio.